Hello, and welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
And I'm KristaLyn.
Am I going to sneeze? No, I'm not going to sneeze. Okay.
Okay. Bless you anyway.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so this is us. This is your Alchemist Inkwell podcast for grounded people. Here we go. Jumping
Oh
in.
my God. We're doing it. We're doing it. No, hello. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be an episode. Okay, so this is the long-awaited Italy recap. And you might be like, hey, didn't you guys go to Italy in May? We did. We did go to Italy in May. Is it now July? It is. It is July. It's actually the end of July, which weird. That's a thing. Oh, I just realized that I will find out about that thing that I applied for
Mhm.
before this episode airs.
Ooh, that'll be fun. Well, hopefully we'll have
Yeah,
a really good announcement for that
next
when we
episode.
get back. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the next episode
Hmm.
that will still be recorded. Mm, yeah, I just realized what the date is. I should find out about that this week. If you're wondering, we are recording this episode from the past, like way right now. We're talking about like future that you are in and we are also in, but we
We're
recorded
not
this
in the
not
same
in that
spatial
future.
future as we're in right now.
Yeah. Basically recorded back-to-back episodes. We recorded it in the same day so that we can make sure you guys have enough podcasts to sustain you while we are in Japan.
Yeah.
And if you didn't hear last episode, we spent a good portion of it being excited to go to Japan.
Yeah, we did.
Um,
Yeah.
which is good considering how Italy went. So we're going to go through and talk about Italy. Couple disclaimers as we share this. And we're also going to talk about some travel tips as we're getting ready for Japan, things that we're doing and that we always do before we travel. Because if you are traveling this right now as an intuitive person, it can be really challenging to travel as an intuitive person. So we're going to share a little bit about that too. A little bit later on. But stuff to note. Disclaimers up front. This is a unprecedented, completely out of character experience
Mhm.
for our trips. And I just want to start saying that there. And we still got, despite how this trip goes, we still got so much out of it, which we are going to speak to as well while we tell you how the trip went.
Mhm.
Additionally, our crew was the coolest. Like our
Yes.
people that were on this trip were phenomenal and we love you.
Mhm.
Okay.
We are sorry you've had to wait this long for the episode where we get to gush about you. And also, thank you for being on that journey with us where we now have prevented something like that from ever happening again because of the way we are moving forward in partnership with the company that we work with.
Yeah. We've gotten to do a lot of cool stuff because of how this went to make things better for not even just our trips, but
Yeah.
all trips
Mhm.
going forward with this company. So there was obviously the universe was using us as a tool to facilitate that. And I understand that. That
Mhm.
being said, I will say it up front. Fuck you, Massimo. We're going to start there. Massimo was our tour guide. So we're going to run through and we're going to try to do this really brief. We've taken so much time before to talk through this with a whole bunch of different people, and it is a long story time, but we're not going to make it hopefully as long as it could be. So we went to Italy and we were going to be traveling between Rome and Florence. That is the Trova trip that we were on. So that was our Italy trip that we had marketed last year that went this May. Um, and I obviously deeply attached to Rome. Deeply, deeply attached. As if you don't know, I've been writing a book about Rome for like 3 years. It's done, by the way. Book is done. It is being edited. It is by the time you're hearing this, I will have pitched it to agents. It is that level of done. And I'm so freaking excited. It's called the Custa. Anyway, last year I went to Rome to study stuff basically about La Custa. So spent a lot of time studying whatever. So the reason I bring this up is I have extensive background knowledge on the history of the city and the history of the places we were going. Sta also has extensive knowledge on this particular
Mhm.
area of the world
Thank
because
goodness.
of yeah, thank goodness, because of their astrological connection and the connection to all the astrologers in the Renaissance time, as well as studying Italian in college.
Well, and my history of the church class that I've just been doing because
Oh, yeah,
that's
and
what
the history
happened
of the
there.
church class.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, if it had been anywhere else in the world, this trip would have gone so poorly. But because it happened to be the one place where we both have so much knowledge on the topic, it didn't, it in my opinion, still was a good trip. It went really, like, I think there was a lot of value there. Even if we had to basically lead it ourselves. So day one, we get there. Usually we have a meeting with our guide. So on all our Trova trips, we get a guide, and that is our local guide. They are with us the whole time. You've heard about us gush about Hani. You've heard about us gush about Malcolm. We love them. You even heard us gush about Nick. Nick was our guide in Ireland, and he was kind of a frat boy, but he by the end was like, "What's my birth chart look like?" And I just went through a breakup, and like he got on board, and we stand that, like, love the growth. He had a transformational experience in that time. Um, but anyway, you've heard us talk about our guides. We love our guides. We love partnering with our guides. And we also love being really respectful of the local culture. No matter where we go in the world, we are incredibly respectful of the local culture. That is a key facet of anything that we're doing. We absolutely refuse to disrespect any type of local culture at all. Like that's not our goal. However, we get there and we have our meeting with Massimo. And from about the first 3 minutes of talking to this man, we knew, uh-oh, this is
Yeah.
not going to be the same experience.
Yeah.
This is going to be an issue.
Two of our travelers happened to be in the same cafe area, and they were watching our body language during this pre-meeting. That is usually a highlight of the trip for me, where we
Yeah, we
get to get
love
on the same page
pre-meetings.
and become a team and start curating this amazing experience for all the people who chose to travel with us. And it's so cool. And
Hmm.
he sat down, and immediately the people who were watching us saw our body language shift.
Yeah. He had not read anything about the trip. He didn't even know
Oh,
two of us were hosting it.
he didn't know my
I was
name
there. Yeah, I was
for
there.
days.
Krista was there, and Dan was there, but my husband, Weston, was not there because he was showering.
Mm-hmm.
And our guide, his name was Massimo. Fuck you, Massimo. Sat down. I sat down, and I was like, hey, like we kind of met briefly earlier because I had like seen him unloading luggage. And I was like, and this is Krista, the other host of the trip. And he was like, oh, there's another host of the trip. Okay. And just kind of like gave us a weird look. And we're like, okay. And then he was like sitting there quietly, like didn't say anything. And we're like, so like, you want to get started? Like talking about stuff? And he was like, well, don't you want to wait for your husband? Mm, no, I don't actually. He has nothing to do with this. Um, so that was a thing. And then he proceeded to just literally read us the itinerary and answer no questions. Key theme with Massimo is he could speak perfect English and understand English
Mm-hmm.
very well until he didn't want to.
Yes.
So anytime we'd ask him a question that he either didn't know how to answer or didn't want to answer, he'd be like, I'm sorry, you got to speak slower. I don't speak English very well.
Which
Yet
is
I've been a
weird.
tour guide here for 25 years and lived in the US.
Exactly. And he would be like, "Oh, I lived in the US. I know how things are." And it's like, "Well, then you should be able to help us here." Like, we are
Yeah.
trying to be respectful. We are trying to do all these things. It got, and you hear our frustration now. We did not start out at that level of frustration.
No,
It took us
no.
about 2 or 3 days and some very
Severe
severe is a good word for it. Some very severe issues
occurrences.
where we decided we needed to turn on the sass a little bit in order to stand up for the group and make sure that they got the experience that they were there for.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we meet the travelers and he proceeds to take us to a meal that was one of the worst meals I've had in my entire life. Not because
Mine
it
was
didn't have
protein
to
bar.
be. It didn't have to be.
No.
He selected the menu. Like he selected why the menu that they picked, I have no idea. And I do have to say, the company, which Trova has since terminated all contracts with, so just keep that in mind. This company was called G2. G2 hated us from the moment we came. They hated
Yeah.
us because G2 messed up and we caught it. So, like, just some back end information. If you're like, wow, it seems like they're working against you, it's because they were. It's
Hmm.
because they were. Um, G2, not Trova. Trova tried to help us the whole time.
Yeah.
Really tried.
Literally to the point of texting us.
Yeah.
It was
At
it
one
was
point, they were texting us, which is fine. But G2 did not like us from the beginning, and it showed. It showed. So they took us to this horrible meal. People, they had no vegetarian. I got a bowl of leaves. That was
Mhm.
the
I
vegetarian
got two
option. It was a
plates of
bowl of leaves.
leaves, and then I had to
Yeah.
have a protein bar because literally everything else was not an option.
And meanwhile, they're walking past our tables carrying like beautiful dishes of pasta and just not giving it the pick this awful fish based menu. It was terrible. Anyway, so we're like, okay, but we're still trying to be like, some duds. Like, it's all good. It's all good. Um, and they had reorganized our schedule like 2 weeks before we actually left. So, and that was the first punitive sort of action that they did for us. So I'm not going to explain the whole situation, but they ended up taking things from 2 days that they did not need to do and putting them on one day. So we had one day with like barely anything on it, and one day with like 9 hours of walking tours on it. For like truly no reason. They did not need to do that. They just did that because they didn't like us. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying that out of like assumption. I'm saying that out of genuine fact. There was no reason.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
they changed the calendar or the itinerary on us a couple times uh
yeah,
before the trip and set us
yeah,
up to not be the more leisurely pace that it was set up to be.
yeah. So day one, we ended up having a one tiny, tiny walking tour. We were just supposed to walk from the Spanish Steps to Piazza Navona, passing the Trevi Fountain. Like that was the whole day. So Krista
Mhm.
and I were like, no, we're gonna also do a tour ourselves, which we did, which was so cool. It was such a cool experience. But so we were doing that walking tour, and it was basically like we had these headsets that they made us put in and keep for the whole, which I hate headsets. We all hated it. And starting that very first day, they started getting upset with us if we ever took the headsets out. Keep that in your mind for later because it will come
Mhm.
back around.
Well,
I
and
was
let's
like,
also talk about how many people who tend to be neurodivergent tend to join our tours and that we
yeah,
love that. And we are also neurodivergent, and how these headsets are just a sensory nightmare.
they're not good.
Mhm.
Like it's just no bueno. But they insisted. They kept getting mad at us every time we take them out to talk or whatever, which get mad at me.
Like
Uh,
visually and verbally angry,
yeah.
scolding
Put
us.
it back in. Why are you not listening? You're going to get lost. Keep in mind, at this point, we're on this tour with a local, or with Massimo, the dick, and a local guide. And local guide. The local guide is just kind of meandering. She didn't really have anything to hold up in the air. Like we couldn't really follow her very well. Ross just kept disappearing for like extended periods of times and then just like coming back. And we were like, and he would with no warning. So we're already like, cool, he's not being very helpful. Fantastic. And then we're walking after we do the Trevi Fountain, whatever, we're walking, like I said, towards Piazza Navona. And one of our travelers has to pee because they're a
Human beings.
person.
Yeah.
And
Do
she very
it.
respectfully was like, hey, I'm just going to run. We're in a mall. I'm going to run over here. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. I'll meet you guys. And we're like, okay, cool. Thank you for telling us. You're a grown ass person. You can meet, you know where the fuck we're going. Like, even if you got completely separated from the group, you would know where we're going. Plus, we have cell phones. Like, it's fine. Um, but for some reason, Massimo turned around and was like, where are they going? What are the, and like freaked out at us, like yelled at us because she was going to the bathroom. And we're like, she's gonna catch up. Like, it's fine. She's gonna go pee. We're in Rome. It's not like we're somewhere in the boonies somewhere. Like it's you straight shot. You're going straight over here. It's all good. He freaked out and went and stood at the bathroom, made us all wait there, and he stood out the bathroom just to lecture her about it. And that became a theme.
Mhm.
He really hated when we had to use the restroom. Anyway, we get to Piazza Navona. He kind of like he's standing there and he's like, okay, like this is a say goodbye to our local guide. And we're all like, bye.
Mhm.
Um, he leaves, she leaves, they just like peace out. He
Mhm.
doesn't even like tell us like, hey, gonna meet here tomorrow, gonna just pieces out. And we're like, rock on.
It was like
So then we let
11
our
a.m.
right. And it was like 11 a.m. Yeah. So we were like, hey, we're going to lead our own walking tour, which we did. We ended up going to these really wonderful temples that I had kind of scoped out the day before and this theater where La Costa used to go. We went underground of this one church where like multiple temples lived and there was it was very haunted under there.
Mhm. Yeah.
And everyone got to kind of feel that out and feel their energy. And it was a cool experience in general. I really loved that part.
Which is another thing. Like if he would have read about us before getting there, he would have known we're spiritual. If he would have listened to us in the pre-trip meeting, he would have known like we have a lot of people with a lot of intuitive ability and a lot of
Yeah.
sensitivity to energies. So the
Mhm.
Colosseum might feel a little overwhelming, which it did for
Mhm.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
This is on the next day of the itinerary, but things like
Yeah.
that were a factor for us.
Yeah.
We were
Which
just
we
sort of
tried to
getting
tell
pulled
him. He just
along.
didn't listen. He did not listen. At all. At all. So we did that tour. It was wonderful. Everyone was bonding
Mhm.
as a group because that was totally an optional tour. If they didn't want to hang out, like they don't, you never have to hang out with us if we're doing something on tours, or even if we are doing something on tours. Like you never have to do that on the trips. You can still do your own thing if you want to. But everyone came. It was just really lovely. Like everyone like bonded immediately and channeled in and got a lot of information. It was super neat. Next day happens. That's our big day. And he had said it's going to be a big day. And we were like, okay. And we asked, we were like, what does that mean? Like, what do we need to do? He's like, it's just going to be a lot of walking just to prepare the group for a lot of walking. We're like, cool, we can do that. It was so much worse than that. And he did not prepare us at all. By the way, he would sit there and like talk, like when we're on the bus or whatever, and just give us completely inaccurate historical facts.
Mhm.
And
Which
everyone
one of
started,
us got?
yeah, everyone started getting a kick out of it because sometimes whenever he would say something wrong, I'd be like, and then whenever like he could say something else wrong, Chris would be like, and the whole group's just like laughing because we were just, he was just, it was wrong. They were inaccurate
Yeah.
history.
At one point, you and I would look at each other and just be like, really? And the other one would be like, no.
No, no, that didn't happen like that. No. Mm-mm. Um, so also just like bad at his job there, like just the basics. So anyway, the next day was going to be ridiculously exhausting. And I mean that even just if it had been run well, it still would have been exhausting. The way that it was organized is we were going to hit the Colosseum, hit the Forum, walk to the Pantheon to get a bus from the Pantheon to the Vatican, have a lunch, do St. Peter's Basilica, then do the Vatican museums. If you're sitting there like, holy shit, that's a lot. We
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And we didn't organize it that way. Our itinerary was supposed to have the Colosseum on the day before. Did not. Why? Because the company hated us. Um, anyway, so we start off, we get a new guide. It was horrible too for the first leg of today's adventure. We go and we start in the Colosseum. Now, we had shared that we weren't going to really want to do Colosseum so much, and we were really excited about the forum. We had mentioned that in the beginning meeting. Massimo did not listen. Um,
We
we
even
go
put
into
it
the
in the
Colosseum.
chat where you could read it and see it and, review
Oh,
it.
by the way, that night. Oh no, I'll turn that around. Anyway, we had said like in the chat, like we're so excited for the forum. We're not super into the Coliseum, but we're glad we get to touch on that too. Whatever. We spent an ungodly amount of time in the Coliseum. She walked us around that place for like an hour and a half. If you've ever been to the Coliseum, if you're not going to all four levels, you're just going to one. That is insanity. That is
Mhm.
so much time in that place. And it would literally be like walk 10 feet and she'd pause again, be like, take pictures here and walk 10 feet and pause again. And here's another fact. When people were melting, one, it was hot. And two, we're all sensitive. It's not a pleasant place to be
Mhm.
for a multitude of reasons. Um, it's kind of really loud. There's a lot of different energies. Plus, the church has gotten its fingers all up in there, and it's just not super pleasant. So we had some travelers be like, "Hey, we're gonna meet you outside," which we were like, "Go, fine, go outside. We totally get it." And she got pissed that they left. She, where are they going? Why are they leaving? And I was just like, "Oh, they're just gonna meet us outside. It's fine." And she like stormed away a couple steps and turned around and was like, "Do they just not like crowds?" And we're like, "Yeah, they
Sure.
just don't like crowds." And she was like, "Oh, okay, okay." And then she like was fine with it. And you're like, "What?" And by the way, Massimo wasn't there. He had
You have no
left.
idea where he was at that point.
He was gone again. Did he tell us? No, he just was gone. Um, so then we're outside the Coliseum and we're like, okay, now we're supposed to go to the Forum. So the way that the Forum is set up, the main entrance to the Forum is like right across from the Coliseum. You wait in line, you go through the big one of the triumphal arches, boom, you're in the Forum. All of us were collectively really excited for the Forum. That's where we wanted to spend the most time. We did not want to see the Pantheon. We barely wanted to see the Coliseum. We just wanted to go into the Forum. We're walking, and then we're walking past the farm, and now we're
Mhm.
up on the road, and now we're walking along the road. Krista and I are making eyes at each other like, what has happened? Are we
Yeah, we've
skipping the
both been here
forum?
before and we know how to get into the forum. We know like where the entrances are, and we know this
Hmm.
isn't it.
Yeah. And it's like you're kind of walking by the forum, but you're literally on the road. Like anyone can do it. Like anyone can walk where we were walking. And we were just
Yeah.
like, what is happening? And Asimo came like, what is your problem? What is the problem? And like in our faces. And we're like,
Mhm.
well, and we tried to talk to him and he made it a huge deal. We were not trying to cause a bunch of drama around it. Oh,
Yeah.
well, if you don't like where we're going, we can just turn around. We'll waste our whole day standing in line. We're not doing the form because the line is too long. And if you don't want to, if you want to waste your whole day standing in line, that's your choice. But we will go. We'll turn around. We'll go. And we were just like, no. That's not it at all. We just would
And we were
love to
like,
have been
when does the forum
informed.
close? How can we also do the forum and also stay on track? And like, what is the win-win here? Because
Yeah.
everybody paid for the forum, and obviously you're skipping it because you're saying that the line is too long, because it'll take too long, and then we'll have to skip other things. We won't make it into the Vatican Museum or something like that. And so we were like, okay, strategy can help us here. Like my Virgo
Yeah.
turned on.
Yeah.
But the problem was where teamwork would have made the dream work, there was no desire for teamwork or communication.
And he did not care. He didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to give us an
He
answer. We
almost,
tried to ask him like if we could go in later on our
yeah.
own, and he wouldn't say. Like
And
it
he almost
was,
trying to shame us a little bit because he would stop everything and then the tour guide would stop and come over and we'd be like, no, you can keep explaining. We're going to strategize here and figure
yeah,
things out. And then it's like they wanted it to be over the microphone and like they wanted to make us look poor. But
yeah.
we were just trying, like it felt very not not like a relationship I would like to have.
No, it was bad. It was bad. So then we're like, no, we'll just walk through the forum here. Like this is the best we got, I guess. Whatever. Was very frustrating, and we ended up telling a lot of our travelers like if they were staying around, how to do the forum, the areas they should look at in the forum, that kind of thing. But we just kind of like walked through the street, and Kristen and I were just like
Mhm.
we just kind of got shamed completely. We
Yeah.
got told basically we were going to ruin the whole day if we did the forum, all these different things, which by the
On
way,
day
found
two.
out later, there's 5 entrances to the forum. And I
Mhm.
went in through one, no line. No line at all at any of the other entrances. They just straight up decided no, they weren't going to do that. And they decided that way before. There was
Mhm.
no way they decided on the fly just then. They intentionally knew they were not taking us into the forum for sure.
Mhm.
And we get to the end of like this like kind of forum lane. She's explaining Trajan's column, and one of our travelers is like, "Do you know who the guy is at the top of it? Because there's a statue of a man at the top of the column." And the tour guide looks at her and goes, "Yes."
Walks away without saying who it is. Yeah.
We're just like, "What the fuck is happening?" And they proceed to start bitching about us to each other in the over the mic in the
Mhm.
headsets. They're forcing us to keep in our ears, so we're
Yeah.
literally listening to them talk shit about us
In Italian
in the
and English.
microphone.
And then we catch the little clip where they talk about skipping lunch. Now
Yeah.
we have many people who are not only intuitively sensitive, but have physical needs as well.
Mhm.
And we needed more breaks than we were getting, and many of us had dietary requirements, which includes eating. So
Yeah.
when we heard, and everybody heard, and I remember the exchange of glances from our whole group when we heard skipping lunch, and we were just like,
Yeah.
no. Me
They
as a
heard, well,
Taurus,
they said
especially,
skipping
I was,
lunch and the
and
basilica.
yeah. Mhm.
They're like, we're going to skip lunch and skip St. Peter's Basilica. And we're all like, no, no, you will not. And at this point, Kristen and I go into like, I think overdrive mode of like, we're going to figure this out. Like, this is not going to be a thing. So we're like, Massimo, can you come here? Because that's what he said before. It's like, well, you need to communicate with me. We were like, fine, we'll communicate with you. I'm not making fun of those accents. I'm just making fun of him, just for the record. And so he came here.
I'm glad you clarified.
So he came back to talk to us at the back of the group when we were trying to strategize. And I was like, why would we be skipping the Basilica? Like, we already skipped the Forum. Why would we now be skipping St. Peter's Basilica too? He's like, well, we're going to run out of time. If we get there and the line is 3 hours long, then we can't do the Basilica and do the museums. We'll sacrifice the museums if you just want to do the Basilica. And I was like, no, 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 no. But we're doing both. We're going to figure out how to do both and lunch. And so
Mhm.
Kristen and I basically strategized and I was like, hey, Massimo, like if I get into a cab right now, like at the Pantheon, we're walking to the Pantheon. If I get into a cab right now and I go to the Vatican and I stand in line at the Vatican and I wait through the line for you. So all 3 hours, you guys can do the Pantheon, you guys can get lunch, and then you guys can meet me in the line. Like I will save our spot and you guys can come meet me in the line. And then we can all go in together. And that way we can guarantee to do the Basilica. Can we do that? And we went through it with him for, I don't know, 20 minutes. We were like, do
Yeah.
this. Can we do this? Can we,
We
like,
repeated it in various different
mhm.
ways.
And he understood. He repeated it back. He talked about the plan with us. He knew what the fuck we were doing. So we got to the Pantheon. He walked Weston and I to a cab, put us in the cab, and we went to the Vatican. At this point, shit gets so much worse. If you're like, wow, it's been bad, it gets so much worse, guys.
It
So
does.
much worse.
Yeah. So I stayed behind and we divided and conquered, which was the idea
Mhm.
here. And while Massimo promised that he would stay in communication with Emily, I just remember what happened between the time that you left and us getting back, reuniting.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, Massimo promised, he was like, I will communicate. I was like, hey, when I get there, I'll message you. Like, we'll stay in communication.
Mhm. Yeah, teamwork. And I
Hmm.
brought it up again with him. I was like, listen, I know it's been really tense, but we just want to communicate. We want to like be on the same page. We want to do this together. Like this could be really great for this week. Let's try to fix it. And he was like, well, I lived in America, so I know all of that. And in Italy, we know that if something doesn't happen one day, it'll just happen the next day. And I was like, yeah, but Massimo, we don't have the next day. We are only here for today, and then we're going to Florence or whatever. So we go in and now somebody has to use the bathroom. And so I went up and I said, hey, just letting you know
In the
ahead of time.
Pantheon.
Yeah. So we're on the way to the
Yeah.
Pantheon. And
Yeah.
I was saying, hey, we need to find an opportunity for people to use the restroom. They need it. I
Hmm.
get the eye roll. I hear the word bagno over the
Princess.
speakers, as does everybody else. And I'm like, great. Like I took Italian in college. It hasn't stuck with me as well as it could have, but I was also brushing up on Duolingo and I can understand more than I could speak. And so I knew, and several of our travelers also knew what was being said most of the time. And I do remember like throughout the trip, Massimo would say something in Italian and I would respond to it in English. And he would look at me and he'd be like, yeah, I know what you're saying, but he would still do it.
Hmm.
So I like, I don't know. But we went in and I remember running like this covert mission in the Pantheon where I kept my eyes locked on the tour guide so that everybody else could go to the bathroom and she wouldn't notice because she and I were in this staring thing. And then we were supposed to just walk to the bus. This should have been so easy. It should have been, I thought the bus would be like right there. No, it was like 3 Roman blocks away. And
Hmm.
they were so far ahead of us at this point that they were not being aware of who might have been walking a little bit slower or who might have just been at the other end of the group.
Right, which was the theme for Massimo. He would walk on average a block ahead of the group and not look back. I have it on video, multiple video of him, and it would be to the point where he would like walk to the train car and get on without looking to see if we were even there, and he was like a city block ahead of us. Or
Yeah.
like it was a common theme. So like leading the group, this was the first time we really experienced it. But he and the other guy, and
They were so gone. And so at one point when we had to cross traffic, I ran into the street to make sure that if the light went green, I would be standing with my arms out to create sort of a barrier to allow the rest of our group to get across. However, and this was May 6th, which is relevant because my solo return was coming up. So this was May 6th. And Mars, the moon, and Mercury were all in Aries together, not witnessed by any other planets, which and I remember saying to everybody that morning, if you feel anger, if you feel frustration, like make sure you witness it and make sure you like, do what you can with it. That may be prevalent today. And then I'm in the middle of the crosswalk and I'm trying to get everybody across. And then as I turn to try to get out of the street, it's a cobblestone street. My foot gets stuck and somehow I launch forward. Like my water bottle got thrown to the other side of the street and I hit the ground in traffic so hard that it was probably 2 months before my wrist actually fully recovered. Um, and
Massimo still does not know this happened, by the way.
Massimo has
That's
no
how
idea this
out
happened.
of touch
Half our
he was.
group does not know it happened. Well,
Yeah,
they do because
Krista
we
was
talked about it.
bleeding.
Actually, no, I wasn't bleeding. I was very pleased with myself
Oh
that I
yeah,
did
but you
not
were
tear the leggings
scraped
I was
up.
wearing. Yes, I was quite scraped up. I was bruised for weeks and my wrist was twisted to the point that I was wearing a brace when I got home for a while. And one of our lovely travelers actually had tape. So she and I were taped up. They and I think, were taped up together for a couple
Yeah.
of days, which was fun, but should not have been a bonding moment.
Meanwhile, I'm in line and I was like, my darling husband is like a VIP of this experience. I do just have to say, because he was like, what do you need? I'm like, I need a sandwich. I need shade. I need something because the line is in the fucking sun. Like, and I sunscreen, but not that much sunscreen. So he comes back and he got me a scarf. So I'm like holding the scarf over my head. Like a sandwich and whatever. We're waiting in the line. And when I had arrived, open up our app to message Massimo and I see a message in there from yesterday. And it said, hey, just a reminder, tips are expected as part of our salary. Please tell the group to tip both the local guides and me. Okay, thanks. And I was like, well, fuck you. No, I'm not responding to that.
Won't tip
But I
anybody
had
at
said,
restaurants or anything, but definitely tip the tour guides.
right. But I had texted Massimo like, hey, I'm here. There's two different lines. Which lines do I get in? No response. And then I was like, hey, I got into this line. I hope it's the right line. No response. Anyway, I'm in this line. I'm getting closer and closer to the front. Me and Krista are texting because Massimo's not responding to me at all.
Mhm.
And Chris was like, hey, we're almost there. We're going to go have lunch. And I was like, listen, I'm almost at the front. I'm just going to get into the line again.
Again.
And I will wait through it again while you guys have lunch. Like I'll just be in the line. And so that was the plan. So I'm now waiting in line further in the Vatican. And Krista, everyone now has to go to the bathroom still, other than the ones that just like
Mhm.
escaped to go potty. And Massimo's pissed about that.
And this was so counterintuitive. Do I get to tell this part of the story?
Please, it's your
Okay, I just
story.
want to make
Yeah.
sure that it's at the right moment. So
No,
we get
do
off
it,
the
do it,
bus
do
and
it.
they're like, okay, there's a bathroom here. Everybody go to the bathroom and then we will go to lunch. And I was like, cool, everybody go to the bathroom. And I run towards the thing and there's a turnstile. Because of course in Vatican City you have to pay to use the restroom. And so, by the way, my face is no longer numb from the dental procedure this morning. I can talk freely. Yay. I must be able to rant now. Thank you.
Mhm.
So we get there and you need a €2 coin. And there is a person making sure that if you don't have that €2 coin, you're not going through. And there's a machine that will convert other coins to €2, except it's broken. So I get a coin from somebody and I put it through. And as I'm trying to walk through the turnstile, it flips in front of me and stops and will not let me through. So I, at this point, have promised my body that we have arrived. So it's like, we're not waiting anymore. So I duck under the turnstile and I go. And like, he can chase me in there if he wants, but he's going to have to wait for me to get out and I still win. Fortunately, I think he did try to chase me, but our travelers, the wonderful people that they were, advocated that I had in fact paid because they saw the turnstile keep me out. Like, all of Rome did not want us to have a good day this day. So I've now fallen in the crosswalk and been kept from the bathroom. And so now people still can't go to the bathroom, but we're all like on the edge. And so they're like, fine, we're just going to go to lunch. We're just going to go to lunch. We walk 2 minutes, maybe five, to get to this cafeteria style lunch where there are two restrooms totally free to use.
He just took them to that restroom again because he fucking hated us. Like he just hated us. And then you guys had to pay for shitty lunch.
Yeah, it was the most expensive lunch ever for not that great of quality at because very cafeteria, very much for tour groups, that kind of thing. And we were trying to catch up with you. So I was very aware of the time of like, hey guys, sit down, take a bit of a breather, have your lunch, but in at this certain time, we're gonna go and we're gonna find M. M's been waiting for us in line. Everybody, like I was hyping it up, like, look at this victory that we're creating here out of a poor situation. And at one point I was like, okay, M is near the front of the line again. Let's go. And I went over to Massimo and the guide and I was like, hey, M is near the front of the line. And they rolled their eyes and dragged themselves out of the chair. And I was like, as if you didn't know this. So then we walked towards the line. I said, okay, M's up there. And Massimo was like, well, what are you talking about? We can't cut in the line. They'll kill us. Literally, they'll
Yeah.
kill us. And he was like, maybe
And
this is how Americans do it. Ugh.
well, at
So
this
I tell
point, Krista
him.
calls me. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, we're right here at the front. Like, you guys can come, like, right here. And by the way, people had been cutting in line to meet their groups the whole time. I'd waited in that line fucking twice. I know the whole time they had been cutting in line. It was happening very frequently. And Krista informs me Massimo said, no, they'll kill us, and had put them at the back of the line. And so West and I had to get out of the line after already have waiting in it 2 times and walk to the back. And at this point, I'm mad, mad, like
This
big
was a
mad, mad.
moment to watch you approach in true like mom form. It was
I definitely, it was true mom form. I was furious, but I was like contained furious because we're still wanting to make the trip like good for the travelers and they don't need
yeah,
to see me that bad. But
no,
I'm
but
like,
you
Massimo,
come
I like
here.
told him, I was like, Massimo, come here. And he came over and I was like, what is going on? Like, you just sent me here and I didn't go off, but I was like very clear about it. And he was like, oh no, you said you were just going to go check out the line and that you were going to let us know how long it was. And I was like, no, I did not. And you knew what I had said. You
Mhm.
absolutely knew. He's like, oh, I just didn't understand then. I don't know. And Weston goes, well, then you're a bad guy. The whole group was like clapping to the side, like, yeah, you are a bad guy. And then he apologized. He did not apologize until after Weston spoke.
Yeah. So, and I remember at that point too, I remember saying to Dan, you're going to have to come with me because I knew we
Mhm.
weren't going to get respect without both of them there.
Yeah,
And
which
he
we didn't.
was, yeah. And so at this time, I was also bringing up things with him. I can't remember what it was, but he was texting on his phone, ignoring me the whole time.
Yeah, no. So basically, what it was is I was like, we're kind of like, it's like, well, maybe that's the way they do it in America, but in Italy, we have more respect than that. And I said, Massimo, I have done things like this all over the world, and I checked with you to make sure that we could cut in this line. This is your fault. Like you said that we could. And then I was like, so how can we avoid this going forward? Weston walked away. He was like, I can't. And he like went and
He
walked
went
away,
back
which
to the
was
hotel.
very valid emotional response.
Yeah.
And I was like, what can we do? And we were both like, what can we do to strategize with you to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because if you truly did not understand, you have failed so greatly at this. And he goes, and looks at his phone. And both Chris and I are like, excuse me, why are you looking at your phone? What is on your phone that is more important than the conversation we're having? He's like, I'm trying to get you a guide for tomorrow, something we had specifically asked to not have. And I
Mhm.
was like, absolutely not. We do not want a guide for Ostia Antica.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you need one. Like, no, silly girls, you need one. Like, very much that attitude.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we do not. I have studied there, which I have. I have studied there. I do not need a guide. And he goes, uh-huh, sure.
Yeah.
And walks away.
Yeah.
It was, we were both just like looking at each other like, oh my God, we're gonna fucking explode. Like, oh
Mhm.
my God. So then we get up to the front of the line at the Vatican, at the
Well,
St.
so
Peter's
at this point,
Basilica.
I'm spending the whole line with like Dan holding my shoulders so I can be formatting an email to Trevor.
Oh yeah. Krista's going Trova. And I'm like shaking, which
Mhm.
rightfully so. Like I'm just like, Weston was like, hey, can I not go in the rest of the day with you guys? Like, I'm gonna go to Vatican jail if I have to be around this man anymore. Which, like,
Fair.
valid. Yeah. I was like, that is a beautiful, emotionally intelligent response. Feel free to go back to the hotel. He was like, cool, I'm gonna go. He left. We get up to the front of the line, which I've now rated 3 times, and I realized I don't have my passport, and you need your passport to get in. And I was like, well, I'm not supposed to go into this basilica. I'm
Yeah.
out. I'll wait for you guys at the exit. And I just walk
Yeah.
away.
Well,
Turns
and
out,
then
apparently, I lit some stuff on fire there in a past life, and I got an eternal ban, quote unquote. I
love
channeled
it.
about that. I was like, why? Because this is the second time I've been banned from that basilica. I was also banned previously when I went to Italy with my mom and sister from going into St. Peter's Basilica. Can go to the museums, but not the basilica. And I was like, the fuck, why? This is like the second time this has happened to me. And
Yeah.
basically, it's because I have a lifelong, eternally lifelong ban
Yeah.
because I apparently.
Clarify, spiritually banned, not like
Yeah. No,
the Pope guard came up and took
no,
her.
past life, like
Yeah.
past life stuff. I was like, it was very much like a spiritual ban of like, you can't come here. And I was like, what can't I come here?
So
But that's
I
why.
have to take everybody in with
Yeah.
the local guide. I don't know where Massimo was at this point.
Hmm.
But we go into St. Peter's Basilica and she's walking around, she's giving us some like that, she's giving us information that I'm fascinated by because I'm studying religion. But she's walking us 5 steps and giving us information and walking us 5 steps. And we all become hyper aware that we only have so much time in here. And some people would like to experience this basilica that is like a spiritual building, right? Some people were raised Catholic or just had, some kind of signification that they wanted to experience it for themselves. So I end up saying, go. We will meet at the door. At this time, I will find you. Keep your eye on the messages. We're fine. And so it ends up being like me and the guide. And she's like, what, they weren't interested? And I'm like, well, they want to experience the spiritual influence of this place. So they're going to go and they're going to have a moment in the basilica.
Hmm.
And she's like, fine, we will meet at such and such a place. And it was like, cool. And so I take the opportunity to like say to Dan, like, what, this is your first time here. What do you want to experience? What do you need to see? Also, I need to vent. Like, I need a minute because I'm in pain. And it's been a really rough day and I'm worried about the travelers and like all this stuff. And I need to get it together before we gather up again. So we take like 5 blessed minutes and take a walk through the basilica just to get it back together. And then we can't find the guide again when we're supposed to meet. Eventually we do, and then we make it back to M.
Yeah. I had sat in bird poop.
Just
I
kidding.
had sat in bird poop while I was sitting in Vatican Square channeling my guides. Apollo was huge. He was like taller than the building, just pacing and like furious. And I was like, dude, what's your deal? Like, why are you upset? He's like, I hate it here, whatever. Recently started working with like Lucifer as a guide, and I was like, yo, are you the reason I can't get into this building? And he was like, nope, that's on you, sweetheart. And I was like, what the fuck did I do? Anyway, so we meet back up. I had sat in bird poop. We were fine. We start walking to the Vatican museums, which are like out of Vatican Square and like along these buildings. Massimo's full sending it, as she usually does, only stopping when he needs something, like water,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
stopping when he needs to tie his shoe. And he would stop, and we'd all like bunch up on each other because he would stop so abruptly, none of us realized. And
Yep.
he had nothing, like, he had no flag. There was nothing he was carrying. He was just like going.
Yeah.
We
He
get to the
was
museums. We
sailing.
finally get a new guide, and Maximo doesn't go into the museums with us. And he tries to tell the new guide, he's talking shit to this new woman.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're awful, stupid Americans, like saying all this stuff, which we can understand. And like
Mhm.
other people were trying to, go grab a drink at a cafe really quick before we went inside. And we both walk up and we're like, hey, and like intercede into that conversation. We're like, we have these issues. Can some people just go ahead of you? Like, do we have to stay on the tour? And she immediately ignores him and starts talking only to us. And she was a gem. She was
Mhm.
just the best guide that we've had on this whole experience. If we could have just had her the whole time. She was so fun. She made so many anti-stupid man jokes the entire time she walked us through the Vatican museums. She asked us what we wanted to see and how much time we wanted to spend seeing those things. So she took us through specific classics halls so we could see the different statues that were from ancient Rome, that were in the Vatican. Like, she did all of these like very intentional things that were really, really helpful. And a lot of people got tons of validation through the Vatican museums because of her. Like, there was a lot of, truly like a lot of like, oh, here's another dragon on the wall. And that was my validation. Like, it was a lot of ahas. And half the group broke off and went on their own, which was fine. She didn't care at all. The other half stayed. Krista went on their own with everybody else. I stayed with her. And we had a lovely experience. Like, it was a lovely, lovely time. I did end up channeling Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, who was a petty queen. I won't go super into that story because I want to make sure we have time.
Yeah.
But Michelangelo was a petty queen. I love him, and he is so mad you cannot take pictures of the artwork he didn't even want to create in the first place.
Yeah.
He's pressed about it.
Mhm.
Very upset. Very upset.
Well, by the time Dan and I got into the Sistine, because they force you through this
Hmm.
almost boasting of a museum of like, look at all the stuff from
Stuff we stole.
civilizations that we shouldn't have.
Look at all the
And
stuff we stole.
yeah, and then you get to the Sistine Chapel, and then after that, you have to go through like a hall of maps, and then like what seemed about three different gift shops that you're
Hmm.
funneled through on the way out.
Yeah.
Which,
Which, by the way, on admissions alone, the Vatican makes 600,000 euro a day on
yeah,
just museum admissions,
yeah. I was
nothing
saying,
else.
like, we better be paying somebody's way out of purgatory. Like, dang.
600,000 a day. Fuck them. Anyways,
Mhm.
it was a beautiful experience. I will say that was really one of the highlights of the day. I think everyone got so much out of it. We went back to the hotel. We slept. Whatever. Next day, we went to Ostia Antica. There's a whole load of things that happened leading up to that, which we're just not even going to get into because it's just like not even valuable for the story at this point in time. We went to Ostia.
It
Simona
was
couldn't come into
awesome.
Ostia. Ostia is incredible. No one was there. We were there alone. Like, basically, there was barely anyone in the entire town. It's an ancient town, alone. And it was optional. You could either just meander by yourself, which we fully encouraged, or I hosted a tour of all of these different sites.
Better than
And
any guide would have, by the way.
thank you.
Mhm.
And it was so cool. And people met ghosts, and we got to do an offering to the statue of Fortuna for good luck. And just, it was just a beautiful experience to get to share all of that with you, which is some place that, like, it's one of those places, very few places in the world that I'm like, my heart also is here. Like, I love this place. And to get to share that was just, it was so cool. But they had made it really clear we were only going to have 3 hours, or 2 hours in Ostia, an hour travel there, and an hour travel back. And we had to do that. And we were like, and that was because we were going to miss the train. And we were like, okay, fine, like, that's fine. So we could have had much more time in Ostia. I think we could have explored a lot more and
Mhm.
had more time there, but we didn't because we were, again, honoring that time, which is fine. We get back, we pull up to the train station. Massimo parks us like 4 blocks away from the train station for no reason. It starts to rain. He makes us unload our own luggage. One of our travelers smashes her head unloading her own luggage because he does that from a bus. Not even Greyhounds in America
Well,
make you do that.
and Massimo
And then
has
he
no response. no
Yeah,
first
and
aid.
he didn't care that she smashed her head. No first aid. Honey like bandaged Krista's finger for a like
Paper
paper
cut, I
cut.
swear.
Uh-huh. And Massimo heard it happen. We were helping her, and he was yelling at us, like, "What are you doing? Come this way. Why are you just waiting here?" We're like, "Well, someone just got hurt, but fucking fine."
Hmm.
So we're following Massimo forever uphill in the rain. We finally get to the front where all the other tour bosses are dropping off their people. Weird that we had to park so far away. And then he's like, "Okay," we go inside the train station. He's like, "Okay, meet here in 2 hours." And we were like, "We have 2 hours in this train station. If you've never taken a European train, you can get there like a half an hour before and hop on. It's like not a big deal." It was insane. And so we had to kill a whole bunch of time in this train station for literally no reason.
Hmm. But
And
it
then
was
we
during that 2 hours that we came up with the program.
it incense, outsense, and other nonsense was born in those 2 hours, which was lovely. Loved it. And we kind of came up with our whole business plan going forward and what we're doing next Egypt trip and all this sort of stuff. It's really cool. But
Yeah.
anyway, we did that. When we get on the train, he picked the train seats himself for who
Hmm.
sat where and intentionally separated Krista and Dan and me and Weston
Hmm.
on purpose. Like he literally put us in different places
And it
on
was Dan and
purpose.
my anniversary.
And it was their anniversary. So they switched theirs with someone else. So they got to sit together, which happened to be right across from
Right across
Massimo.
from Massimo, facing. It was like, ha, ha, ha,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Fortunately, somebody started talking about astrology. So I ended up saying, like, Dan, can I go talk about astrology, please? And
Hmm.
he was like, yeah, go talk. So I
And we
got
had a fabulous train
wow,
ride. We did energy healing. We were doing card pulls. Like we were in great space. It was
astrology
wonderful. We had a great
lessons.
time. It was
Amazing.
fabulous. Then we arrive in Florence. We get on the bus. We get to the hotel, and it was like fairly early. It was like 5
Yeah.
at this point, and we were like, "Cool, we can check in, and then everyone can go to dinner. Like it's fine."
Dan
We
and I were
check
looking for
in,
like a reservation area.
yeah, because it's your anniversary. We check in. We go upstairs. I lay on the bed, and I roll over to text Krista. And I was like, "Okay, well, at least like we got here, whatever." I forget exactly what I said. And Krista was like, "Yeah, feel
Except
about black mold." And I was like, "What?" And I open up the group chat and there's black mold in like half of the rooms, like 6 of the 12 rooms had black mold. So I'm like throwing on clothes, running
yeah,
downstairs. Weston's
Dan
like,
has
"I
me by
got the
the because
fort here."
Dan and I were in the middle of Florence by this point, or wherever we were, because we weren't right in Florence with the hotel. He's got
Yeah.
me by the shoulders. I'm managing the group chat because Massimo is trying to say it's not a big deal. So people are
Hmm.
like, "When we bring our bags to the front desk. What do we do?" And I'm like, you bring your bags if you want to bring your bags. Do the things you want to do. Forget what Massimo is saying. We'll see you in a second. By the time I look up, Dan has me back at the hotel lobby right
Hmm.
at the time that you were coming out of the elevator
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I explode out of the elevator, which was a weird that it had an elevator because I'm sure hotels didn't.
No.
Um, explode out of the elevator. Krista explodes in the door, and we're like with Massimo at the front desk trying to handle this. And Massimo kind of walks up like, "Oh, stupid Americans." And we're like, "No, no, 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 no. There is black mold." And we're not talking like a little tiny about. We're talking like a foot long stripe along the windows, like,
Mhm.
and every bit of the grout in the bathroom, like repulsive amounts of black mold. And so he gets us all new rooms. He hands me the keys. He's like, "There you go. There you go. Okay, good night." And like leaves. And we're like, "Okay." So Kristen and Dan go to the reservation that they managed to get. Like, "Your anniversary, leave. I've got
Mhm.
this." And I was like, "Everybody leave one of your roommates down here. One of the roommates go out up and inspect your new rooms. I'll sit here with the luggage. If it still has mold, we'll go figure it out." 2 more rooms came back with black mold. And it was great. One of our travelers who's traveled with us a bunch, shout out to Katie, you're the best. Walked up and went full New Jersey on the front desk. It was
East
fabulous. It
Coast.
was fabulous. To the point where other people were checking in, and she very sweetly turned to them. She's like, "Be sure you check your rooms." Massimo did not help at all getting the review. I was like, texting him like, "More rooms came with mold." He's like, "Well, then talk to the front desk. They know what's going on." I was like, "You." Anyway, so that went down. People missed reservations. It was all sorts of not great. We finally got all these rooms without black mold. That was lovely. And then the next day, which was Krista's birthday, we went and had the best time in Tuscany. We had a wonderful, incredible lunch on this Tuscan farm. The women who ran it were amazing. There was dogs, there was chickens. We got to feed sheep. We had wine. They were just spectacular. They had these
The
2 guard
food was
dogs, like
amazing.
livestock guard dogs, and those dogs loved us. They were
Yeah.
all up in our space. One point one had its head on Weston's lap, like sleeping. Like they were all over us. Massimo was off smoking in the house with like one of the grandfathers over the women. Like he was like not completely ignoring us. And at one point, right when we were about to leave, he finally comes out of the house. And we're like, oh, look, Massimo's here. Who would have thought? And he walks over to one of the dogs, like he's going to pet them. And the dog turns at him and she just full bares her teeth and snarls, like full snarl at him. And he was like, oh, and walked away. And then another one of our travelers like pushes her chair back from the table and like scurries over. And the dog rolls over, like, hello, look at my tummy. Even the dog knows you suck.
Right.
Um, and then we led a astrological walking tour around Florence for Krista's birthday, and we found an astrological sundial, which was
Yes.
so
And I got
cool.
to talk about like Antisha with our group, which
Mhm.
felt amazing. And we did a live broadcast, which
We
ended
did.
up
That was
being
the
a
live
podcast
episode you
episode that
guys
you
saw.
all have seen.
Yeah. And then when we went into inside the Medici Palace, one of our travelers had an incredible past life experience. There was this whole room dedicated to Greek mythology. We spent a ton of time in. There was a lot of ghosts we got to talk to. Everyone had a really lovely time. And at this point, the group is so trauma bonded. We're all like tight.
Yeah.
Like it was great.
Well,
Super great.
and afterwards, because we had decided that we were supposed to go on a walking tour of Florence the next day with a local guide, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And since most of the group was there, we were all just like, do we just not wanna? And so I texted Massimo and was like, hey, don't worry about taking us on a tour tomorrow. We're just going to navigate ourselves and take the morning off to make up for the fact that we didn't get the evening off before. And his response was perfect.
Yep. He's like, perfect. Me
He
make
was
sure
really
make
beautiful.
sure you have your bags in the lobby at 8 a.m. That's what the time slot we have to check out of the rooms and have our
Yeah.
bags in the lobby.
Mhm.
And we were like, that doesn't seem right. The hotel checkout's 11. That's super weird. So we went and asked the front desk. We did not need to do that. He just wanted to make sure we were up early and inconvenienced.
Yeah, so
We
we
didn't have to do
arranged
that at
to
all.
make sure that people could do their baggage later. And then it was a good thing we went to check because when I asked the guy, he was like, no, you don't have a bag reservation thing, blah, 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 blah. And it was like 1 p.m. or whatever. And I was like, no, sorry, because we're going to be here at, it was supposed to
Mhm.
be until 1 p.m. And he's like, no, it's only until 11. I'm like, that's not going to work. And he was like, well, you'd have to pay extra. And I was like, I am not paying more money to make up for the failures of our guide again on this trip. I am so sorry. This is not your fault, but you have to understand. And he was like, we can hold your bags for you. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
We had
Also,
had
dude,
to
you gave
cover
us black
payments.
mold rooms. Shut
Yeah,
the fuck up.
we had to cover payments for things that G2 had
Yeah.
not done already on this trip. And we
Yeah.
paid it
Krista
out of
and
our
I paid
pocket.
out of pocket. Yeah. We paid out of pocket a couple times on this trip to cover things for our travelers because their job, they're already paid to come. G2 should have handled it. So we did that, which we did end up getting refunded, which was lovely, especially because they overcharged us to line their own pockets, which was great. And then that day we walked around Florence and it was lovely, but Massimo was out there too. He approached one of our travelers and was like, hey, since you and I are pretty cool, I need you to go tell the group that they need to tip me, but don't tell them I asked you to make it your idea. And our traveler was like, no,
I'm telling everybody.
I'm not gonna do that. So they
Shout out to
immediately
Katie.
we had a separate group chat that was like outside of Massimo, and immediately she blasted it into the group chat of like, you asked me guys to have him tip him, and we're all like, um, we took the train back. At this point, we're talking to Trova very regularly and updating them constantly about like the state of what the fuck is happening on this trip. We take the train back and we hop on the bus, and this is supposed to be our last night. So we're checking into a hotel and then we're gonna have our farewell dinner. And we were supposed to go back to the original hotel we had stayed in Rome. But we're on the bus and Massimo goes, yeah, we're very close to our new hotel. And both of us were like, whoa, 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 whoa. Time
Yeah,
out.
that's
What
not
do you
how
mean
it
new
works.
hotel? You're not supposed to move accommodations without letting Trova know or letting us know at least 2 weeks in advance. That's part of the contract. So we're like,
Mhm.
no one was aware of this. What do you mean new hotel? And he was like, yeah, it's a Best Western, which ironically turned out to be like the best hotel we stayed in this group. But also we were all like, the fuck? Like, what do you mean it's a Best West? Like, that's not at all what we were told to have. So we're already like ticked at him. We get to the Best Western, we check in, like I said. That tend to be the better restaurant or the better hotel. And it had a rooftop. So we all planned on like after dinner, because we assumed dinner was gonna suck, that we were all gonna be on the rooftop and have like farewell drinks.
Mhm.
Which we ended up doing.
Yep.
We went to dinner. Turned out dinner did not suck, which was a lovely surprise. We were all thrilled by this surprise. Um, Massimo barely talks to us at dinner, sits completely across the restaurant from us, which was also a theme. He never sat with us, never did anything with us, like as part of the team at all. He was
And
always
I
far away
made
from us.
So I made a folk magic charm to keep away for some reason. Normally I do like safety or whatever, like in Egypt, it was for safety and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Here I was like, I want to do it for safety, but I keep being pulled to do one that keeps away the evil eye. So I had done a charm for everybody that I gave to everyone, including our guide, as I would do, which included Massimo on the first day, to keep away the evil eye. I bet he threw it away
Uh-huh. Oh,
when he
I'm sure he did. But also, it worked because he definitely cast the evil eye on us and we did not have it.
yeah.
It was a very effective fucking charm. Um, anyway, after dinner, we go to the hotel lobby and he basically stands there. He's like, okay, like this is the end of the trip. There's going to be transfers tomorrow. If you're need to change your transfer or you're taking a different one, like message me in the group. And then he just stood there and stared at us, obviously waiting for a tip. One of
Mhm.
our travelers was like, here's €5. Like, and then he like walked away. He's like, thank you. And he like walked away. We went up. We had an amazing time. We sang Dear Caroline on the roof. Everyone loved us that worked there. We were getting along. We were getting free drinks. Like it was a great experience. Closed it out. Everyone on the trip, I think, got a lot out of it. We were all super bonded. We all had really powerful spiritual experiences the whole time that we were there, like really powerful. Everybody had them, even in the face of all this adversity. There was a lot of transformation. Everyone tapped into really cool stuff. It was just really neat. Mostly because Kristen and I worked like 40-hour days, is how it felt.
It was
Trying to
amazing.
make that happening, and make sure that there was still a good time, which I hope everyone feels like it was. I think they all do, but it was wild. The next morning, we wake up to a message in the group chat from Massimo. And it literally, it was like, you think that you are, that you embarrassed me last night, but you are wrong. You are weak people with no character. I can't
You
wait for you to
deserve my
leave this
expertise.
country and life, or something like. He told us to leave life,
Leave the life. Yeah, that's
leave
what
the
he
life.
said.
And
Mhm.
we were like, did he just tell us to go die? Because we didn't tip it. That was why he
In
was
the Trova
pissed.
group chat where Trova could see because they
Yeah.
were moderating.
And I was
So
like, I think he just told us to go die. And at first I was like kind of back and forth because he said leave the life. I'm like, maybe
yeah,
he meant live the life. Maybe he like didn't spell
yeah,
it
yeah,
right.
that's what I thought too.
Until I got a private message from him. The private message was like, oh, what did he call me? I can even pull it up, I guess, but I don't want
I
to
was
take more
already in a
time.
Barcelona airport by this point.
Yeah, you were already at Barcelona airport at this point, and because you had stayed up all night to catch your flight, and I was
Yeah.
staying for a week longer.
Mhm.
I'm gonna pull it up because it's so fucking funny what he wrote to me
Yeah. Well,
specifically, and I
and
think it's worth saying.
the best thing was
Um,
because we had been talking to Trova the whole time and they had been trying to get in contact with G2 to no success. They saw that message from him. And so
I'm
everything we had said, we
pissed.
had evidence for. And they immediately
Yep.
were like, we've removed him. We're so sorry. It's like, yeah.
So this is what he sent to me personally. Do you think that last night you had
Okay.
do you humiliated me or punished me? No. The truth is that you are beggars, not only about money, but in culture, humanity, and the ability to relate. Keep your energies and the stones in your pocket and let's start to live. I hope to never meet people such as you. And I was like, oh, so he did tell us to leave the life because he wrote live just fine in that message. And
Yeah,
he's
that's
like,
true.
he straight up told us to go die.
Which means he totally threw away the charm because there was a little stone in each of them.
Uh
Uh,
huh. The
and
stone in
I
your
don't think we
pocket.
traded crystals with him, but we did do a crystal trade thing, which we do on all of our trips. So,
So anyway, that was how it went. We did get rectification from Trova, and with through this whole experience, we ended up being able to write like a guide training manual for all of our trips with Trova, and they guaranteed that all of our guides going forward will have special training just for our group and be aligned with what our group does. Um, they did compensate our travelers. Like there was a lot of good things that came out of it. We ended up meeting with one of the Trova CEOs and really transformed things. And we are dedicated to making sure that Trova is better from the inside out on our future trips, which we still definitely trust them to handle the trips. And honestly, they did a lot to handle this trip too. And they guaranteed us they will never work with G2 again, which is great. We love that for them because fuck G2. Fuck Massimo. And every time for the rest of the trip, I would like stub my toe or something and be like, damn you, Massimo. Just, he doesn't have a charm. I can curse him all I want. Um,
That's a thing.
uh-huh. But yeah, so that was our Italy experience, and that's why it took so long for us to get the recap, is we wanted to make sure we had resolution from Trova before we shared the recap with you all. And now is on the precipice of us going to Japan, and we're so excited about it. We're excited to get to come back and share with you all a recap that is not that. It's going to be so much different. And we all had really powerful experiences. There was a time in Rome I went into the Forum myself, and I literally broke down crying in the Palace of Augustus because I'd never been in there before. You can tour it with like a premium forum ticket, which I guess I had. And I had channeled it from Locusta exactly the way that it's laid out. And I cannot stress that enough. Like, it was written in my book months ago, the exact layout of this palace and this tunnel that Locusta and Livia escaped through when Gaius got stabbed. It all exists. It was there. I got to walk through the tunnel that they escaped through. And I was just like sobbing because, like, I know I'm right when I channel things, but like it's a whole other level to like see that. And it was just an incredibly profound and beautiful experience that I'm so thankful I got to have. And I'm so thankful we got to do this with our travelers and all of that. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's our recap. We're headed to Japan.
Yeah.
And if you want to head on our next trip with us, which we're still not announcing the location publicly, we are going to be start teasing it to the week of August 9th. That Friday, on August 9th, we will actually launch the link publicly for our next trip. If you want to come though, you can head to our Patreon and get in on the pre-sale, because that is where it is currently listed. You can
Yeah.
currently get in on the pre-sale
By the time
by the
this
time this airs.
episode goes live, it is already there. So if
Yeah.
you join any tier of our Patreon,
On
you'll
either of us. We
yeah,
have
on
both
either of
individual
our
pages.
Patreon,
Either one.
you'll be able to get access to that early registration link.
Yeah. And join us. It is a very limited trip for this next place that we're going,
Yeah.
as far as amount of people who can go. So there's limited spots.
Yeah. You only
So
have
if
to
you're really
call.
eager and want to travel with us, head to the Patreon, check that out, grab one of those spots. Payment plans are available, by the way, on all of our trips. Payment plans are always available.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can
And they're
always
really
pay.
flexible. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options as far as the payment plans go. You can always use those to for the trips. Those are always there for you. And usually they start like really low, like 150 to 200 a month. Like, it's typically not too much. So really cool. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. That is our recap. We're going to share some travel tips, but we went way too long, so maybe we'll share them
Yeah.
on the next episode. And yeah, thank you guys for being here, and we hope that this story, if anything, was entertaining, and hopefully shows you that if you travel with us, we promise we will go above and beyond to make sure your experience is as magical as fucking possible.
We will throw ourselves into traffic for you.
We will wait in line for
For
3 fucking
hours.
hours.
Oh, yep.
And we will lead multiple walking tours in a magical alignment if we need to.
Yeah. We
Anyway,
will.
thank you so much, and take all this energy, and we hope you go
Go
make
make
some
some
magic.
magic.
I don't think that was a good one.